Hello, everybody. This is episode 6 of the 9 Frames podcast. It is Friday, August 4th. And I am one half of your host, Bill Whalen.
And I'm Mike Whalen.
We're going to get into some sub-points around the league now. The biggest sub-point from yesterday, absolutely ridiculous, again, by the absolute king of ridiculousness, Shohei Ohtani. He throws 4 scoreless innings and hits his 40th homer of the year. He leaves after the 4th inning with hand cramps. He's already 2 for 2. Stays in as a hitter. They intentionally walk him. That's his second walk of the game, by the way. He steals second base. He scores the tying run for his team. And then Carlos Estevez comes in for the Angels, and he gives up 4 earned runs in the 9th to lose 5-3 to Seattle.
Weird. He's been really, really good this year, too.
Yeah.
It's just unfortunate timing, it seems.
Yeah, it's really tough to see them fumbling games like that. They're still going with the meme where Ohtani and Trout are doing ridiculous things and they're losing games. Now it's just Ohtani, though.
Yeah, Trout is supposed to be moving along to, contact swing soon.
I cannot wait to see him back on the field, and I want this team to make a push, dude. It's so tough. Every baseball team just wants to see them in the playoffs, these two guys and the Angels.
Yeah, they're sitting, 4 games out now after last night's loss?
And Giolito just got bombed, their new acquisition. Yeah, definitely, and that's a tough one. Ohtani's still got 310 average with a 1098 OPS. He's got 40 homers, 82 RBI, and 14 stolen bases. So you can kind of put a bow on the MVP there.
He's still hitting 310. That's absurd.
And that's a guy who's pitching a phenomenal season as well.
He pitches every 5th day. Sticking with the AL West, the Rangers decided to activate Corey Seager after releasing a lineup that didn't have him in it.
Yeah, they play him Wednesday, and he goes 2 for 4 in his return with 3 RBI. Absolutely crazy. Texas is still hot.
Scherzer debuts.
Yeah, that's Thursday. The
next day. Scherzer makes his debut. He struggled in the first inning a little bit. He gave up 3 in that inning to the White Sox without Luis Robert, or Robert, however you want to say it. He did end up settling in for a quality start, 6 innings, 7 hits, 3 runs, 2 walks, 9 Ks for Max, and most importantly, a big W for the Texas Rangers.
Yeah, that puts him at a 4.04 ERA. It was a 4.01 when he came over, but it's another quality start, and he keeps you in the game, and he wins you the game, as he was still doing with the Mets. He was still keeping the Mets in the game.
Oh, yeah, he had, 9? That was his 10th win of the season. He had 9 wins with the Mets already in a kind of rough season for them.
Definitely.
That puts the Rangers at a game and a half up, too, so it'll be interesting to see with Verlander and Scherzer going head-to-head now.
Yeah, and just touching back on the Angels blowing that game last night, they're currently 4 out of the wild card, and Seattle's above them at 2.5, so that would have been a pretty big game to finish off.
Very interesting. Seattle 7-3 in the last 10. They're getting a little hot.
They definitely are. Maybe they should have done some more buying at the deadline.
Yeah, they did. It seems like they did more selling.
Yeah, it did.
Pollock, Sewald.
I guess they felt like the roster wasn't what it needs to be to make a run, so they wanted to stock up.
I wonder who's going to be closing games out there now.
Yeah, well, we'll go over to some sad IL news. We got 3 of those, unfortunately, within the last couple of days. Bo Bichette goes to the IL. It did end up being right knee patellar tendonitis, so
thankfully not as serious as it could have been.
Nah, maybe he'll miss a week or two. Stroman goes to the IL. That's kind of a huge hit for the Cubs.
Surging Cubs.
Yeah, right hip inflammation, so that's kind of a top arm on their rotation. They'll probably miss him. I mean, they'll definitely miss him, but probably for a couple of weeks as well.
Well, yeah, because if he's on the IL, pitchers do 15, position players do 10. That's at least 2 starts.
Yeah, it's
maybe 3.
Probably 3, yeah. That's kind of a shame. And the last one is probably the saddest of them all. Cancer survivor, and honestly, all around, just loved by the league. Liam Hendricks, relief pitcher, gets Tommy John surgery. That's going to sideline him until 2025.
He's going to miss all of next year, too. That's really tough.
It's really a shame. He came back, and he was a real feel-good story for the league and all baseball fans, and he was pitching decent. But, yeah, his arm just gave out on him, I guess. That's a sad one.
Yeah, I mean, he'll be back. You know that guy is definitely tough.
Yeah, I refuse to believe he won't be back on the Major League
push
now.
through it.
Most definitely.
Keeping it with some unfortunate news, not on the injury relation, but Brent Honeywell was DFA'd by the San Diego Padres.
Former top prospect
with the Rays, that's true. He had a 4.05 ERA in 46 and 2/3 innings in 36 games this year.
Yeah, they had him coming out of the pen in San Diego. I don't hate a 405 out of the pen as a long reliever. I mean, that's a decent amount of innings to have this late in the year. So
I'm sure somebody will pick him up.
Somebody's got it, right? I
Yeah.
mean, that's a decent arm. And he's obviously a name known around the league because of his former top prospect status and being around. This was his second season in the league. Probably his first by service time. He only had 3 games with the Rays.
Yeah,
So,
he'll be fine. He'll be fine for sure. Someone will take him.
yeah, the Royals, they finish out a shutout, or a sweep over the Mets. They don't finish off the shutout, but Singer gets 8 shutout innings against the Mets, and then the Royals get the sweep. That's their 6th win in a row.
If it wasn't for Lindor's 2-run homer in the top of the 9th, they would have got shut out by the Royals and swept by one of the worst teams in the league.
Opposite field as well. I mean, they're connecting sweeps between the Twins and the Mets now, so that's they're winning big games for a team that's so bad. Pretty wild.
I mean, I think we can just maybe wrap it up on the Mets here.
Yeah, Royals stay hot, Mets stay cold.
For 2023, I think we can move on from them.
The white flag is waved, yeah.
I don't think they're going to be making much noise anymore after the last series I just watched against the Royals.
Fun little story over in Miami. The Marlins get Jake Burger, so they decide to give out $5 burgers to everybody who shows up.
Awesome.
Yeah, love it.
You always love a nice promotion like that to introduce somebody because now the fans are immediately going to like the guy because of something they got.
I think everybody already did.
How much do burgers go for in a stadium?
I bet it's like $17.
That's what I was going to say. A burger and fries is probably $17 and you got to buy like a $6 drink.
I would take it. I'd love that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
And lastly, we're going to just give a little shout out, a tip of the cap. We are celebrating 100 years of the Cape Cod League.
Wow, I did not know that.
Some of your favorite players, Pete Alonso has touched on there. I mean, Mookie Betts, so many players have touched on that.
Of course.
Yep. The Cape Cod League really shines a light on collegiate players from all around the country.
Anybody that's undrafted, it's another place for people to have a chance.
Classic baseball movie also made based around it. I mean, just gotta love it. And 100 years to 100 years more. Let's see it.
Shout out to the Cape Cod League.
Yes, sir.
Let's get into the real stuff now. Kicking it off with what I would argue as the deadline's biggest winner.
Yeah, hard to argue.
They rejoin Justin Verlander. Nice little reunion with the Astros. Huge week for them so far. Like I was just touching on, they get Verlander back. They sweep Cleveland 7-3 in Game 1, 2-0 in Game 2, and 3-2 in Game 3.
Yeah, and Cleveland's a team that they looked like they were basically selling at the deadline, even though they were 2 games out, and they get swept by a team who bought. So that's what happens.
And you'll notice that I just said 0 for the second game. Left-handed pitcher Framber Valdez, on the day they reunite with Justin Verlander, becomes the 16th Astros pitcher to throw a no-hitter and the first lefty to ever do it.
Right, we touched on that on Wednesday's episode, but this is like a real full coverage of that. He faced the minimum as well.
Yep.
I mean, just absolutely filthy. You know he was excited to have his teammate back, so he went out there and he shoved.
We were talking morale. There you go. It's right there.
Beautiful, yeah.
Framber, in my opinion, is one of the best pitchers in the game.
Also hard to argue, and it's love to see a lefty. I love to see a lefty that's that dominant.
Absolutely. He was going through a little bit of a tough stretch. I think they said over his last 5 starts, he had an ERA around 6. He was struggling, so it's nice to see that that he just turned it around and now he's throwing a no-hitter, facing the minimum.
Back to his winning ways, and so are the Astros. So
I'll also say this. I was watching that start. One of the most dominating starts I've seen with my 2 eyes in quite a while.
I mean, seriously, we saw a perfect game earlier this year, and this guy looked like more settled in than that.
One more note with it. It was a Maddox. Yeah. Under 100 pitches. He threw 93, I believe.
How rare is that?
A no-hitter facing the minimum with 93 pitches thrown. That's unbelievable.
And that puts Houston a game and a half back of the hot Texas Rangers.
All he did was just walk Oscar Gonzalez once.
Yep.
Made one bad pitch to walk him, or else he would have had a perfect game.
And then they end up turning 2 there, and he faces the minimum.
The Astros are going to begin a massive 4-game series. Well, they did already begin it. It started last night.
They dropped the first,
They did drop the first one. What was the score? 4-3. It was a real tight one.
Real close game between 2 competitive teams. The Yankees have been having a tough season, ups and downs wise, but there you go. That's going to be an up for them in that one.
Yeah, we'll touch a little bit more on the Yankees a little later, but keeping it with the Astros for right now in this 3-game series, they got a huge 3 games remaining now that
Yeah.
they just lost the first one.
Definitely. Severino's been struggling. He's got to pitch to the Astros tonight on Friday night.
Hunter Brown's been good for the Astros.
Lights will be bright in the Bronx.
And look at who starts on Saturday for the Astros.
Didn't even have to edit that picture.
Against a returning Nestor Cortez, Justin Verlander will be making his return to the Astros in Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, I mean, that should be a phenomenal game. Honestly, probably the game to watch on Saturday. So I'm excited to see that in Verlander's return.
And then jumping to the series finale on Sunday, you got Jose Urquidy taking on Carlos Rodon, who has really struggled this year. He's 1-4 with a 6.29.
Yeah, I mean, that's an absolute series of storylines if you're looking at it. I mean, every matchup is interesting. You got the Severino struggling matchup. That's interesting. Verlander's return matchup, that's interesting. And now you got Rodon, who's trying to get out. He's been struggling. Urquidy, who's been a solid arm for them. I mean, kind of struggling this year ERA-wise, up in the 5. So he's got to get that down as well. That should be a tough pitching game in a hitter's ballpark like Yankee Stadium.
Now, real quick, how do you see the next 3 games of the series going after a Yankees win in the first game?
Yeah, this is one where it's like impossible. It was a one-run game, correct?
It was 4-3.
So, I mean,
Holmes gets his 15th save.
It's pretty tough to pick. I mean, if I'm going to be bold, and it may not be that bold, I probably see the Astros taking the next 3. If you see the Yankees, most days their fans are flipping out online about how they blew the current game, and the Astros are a team that finds ways to win. So if you're blowing games to teams who are just like middle of the run teams, I mean, the Astros are going to find ways to win against you.
Side note on the game last night, newly acquired Kendall Graveman is the one that takes the loss for the Astros.
Yeah,
So,
well, that's definitely tough. So, I mean, making an acquisition and seeing them lose right away will be a little bit jarring, but I'm sure he'll get it under control for them. That win over Houston puts the Yankees back 2.5 games, so
they're closing in.
yeah. Maybe honestly, when you look at it, maybe they should have done more at the deadline and made a push.
They probably should.
I think they're probably the number 1 team that should have done more.
Either them or the Twins. I mean, I don't know why those teams didn't do anything.
My
in their
thing with the
positions.
Yankees that's so upsetting is because the Twins, it was a clear buy. That's all you had to do was buy. The Yankees had to make a decision on whether to sell or buy, and they did neither.
Yeah, they didn't do anything.
They just got Keenan Middleton. That's it. And Spencer Howard for some cash.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that pans out for them, but I don't really know.
And my final question of this topic is, what are the chances the Astros go on a crazy run to win the division by like a wide margin?
Yeah.
You think they could pull away?
I don't think I don't think anyone's winning this division with ease. I think it's impossible at this point. I think Texas's lineup is too good and their offense is too good. They lead in runs scored by 30. I mean, it's insane.
It's something like that.
So Texas is such a hot offense, and I don't think so. So I don't think they're going to run away with it. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's the end of the year. We're talking about Houston won by 4, something like that.
And are you counting out the Astros already? Or not the Astros, the Mariners, sorry. Are you counting them out?
For the division, yes.
They're only 6 out. Why?
For the division, yes. They sold their closer, and they have to make a deep run. I don't think you sell your closer and make a deep run towards teams that are picking up 3-time Cy Young winners, which both Texas and Houston did in the same week.
Could they make the wild card, though?
Yes.
At just 2.5?
Seattle could 100% make the wild card. Will they? Again, I don't really think they will, and it's because they didn't buy, and it's because they sold. If Seattle went harder and more aggressive on the deadline to buy, I would think that they would definitely push through.
I just find it really hard to bet against Houston with their recent run of success, and just the roster's still there. It's just they're still that team.
That's my thing, yeah, and they're only a game and a half out.
I think Texas and Houston are going to be battling until the very end,
100%.
like game 162.
I think so too. I could see that.
It will be close.
And your Angels, which you kept saying maybe they had a chance at the division, they keep blowing games and
kind of letting me down here.
Yeah, now they're 7.5 back. They're a 4th place team, a whole game and a half back. Seattle.
You never want to see it.
Nah, pretty brutal. Especially with Ohtani doing what we talked about in the intro. That's insane.
Yeah, they really need to get Trouty back is the problem.
Yeah, and they need pitchers like Giolito to stop giving up, 6?
That's what'll happen when you play the Braves.
Insane, yeah. Well, yeah, tough matchup.
One of the best lineups.
So, yeah, in conclusion, I think after the deadline and after what went on, I think the Astros squeeze it out. Like you said, I think they battle it out to the end. Maybe they win the division by 3 games. Something like that. Houston stays on their tail, but
I will make a
Texas stays on their tail, excuse me.
I will make a bold pick, though. I guess it's not very bold. I think both of them are going to be in the playoffs.
Yeah. No, both of these rosters belong in the playoffs.
I would love to see somehow, some way they match up in the ALCS to go to the World Series. Imagine the lights there.
The Silver Boot ALCS. That would be awesome.
Game 1, Verlander, Scherzer.
Yeah, the storylines, too. You have a Silver Boot, and then maybe the team comes in second because they win the ALCS. Now they're the silver medal.
I mean, not for nothing. Both of these teams are still playing to be the top team in the American League. The Astros are 5 back and the Rangers are 4 back.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm predicting the World Series right now, I mean, I might as well do something like that. I'll put something out there. I could see Houston and the Braves.
A rematch?
Yep.
Wow, from 21.
Yep. I could see Houston and the Braves, and if it's not them, I could see Texas and the Braves because of the bats just coming alive during the post.
Houston's just so good, man. They just every time they make the playoffs, they just make a deep run.
Yep.
They're never just one and done.
I mean, now they have 4 phenomenal starting pitchers, even a decent 5 and a 6, so they have depth as well. A good bullpen. They just got Graveman.
They just got Altuve and Alvarez back.
Yep. Yeah, I know the team is absolutely primed for a run, as are the Rangers, though.
Very true.
It'll be interesting to see. It stays as close as any division in baseball. Yeah, sticking with the Yankees a bit, we'll actually move over to the AL East in general. They've had some tough situations this week. Starting off with what was described as a scary incident. You don't want to dump on a guy because it sounds pretty brutal in his personal life, but Domingo Germán's going to go on the restricted list for the rest of the year and not pitch another game for the Yankees. That's Domingo Germán, who pitched a perfect game just a month ago.
Yeah, I'm not too sure what actually happened in the clubhouse, but what I read was that the word they used was he showed up belligerent.
Yeah.
And that GM Brian Cashman, Aaron Boone, and Yankees ace Garrett Cole were all visibly shaken asking.
I saw their comments, particularly Cashman, in the media, and it was you could tell he was pretty uncomfortable with it. Kind of something you don't see a lot in baseball, but so a sad story. Hopefully he gets better.
Yeah, he's gonna go on the I guess they'll put him on the IL with whatever they call it, but it's he's checking himself into a rehab to get himself right, which is good. You like to see guys try to. I mean, hopefully he can improve himself.
And another story that you really don't hear about in baseball. Rizzo has Anthony Rizzo of the Yankees has a concussion that dates back to a collision with Fernando Tatis Jr. in May.
I believe it was May, yeah.
It is August as we sit here, and we're talking about how his brain isn't right. Maybe he shouldn't have been playing ball.
Yeah, I wonder what happened. I mean, is the concussion that serious? Is his vision screwed up? I mean,
his brain is rattled, man.
The numbers. I mean, if you want to run down the numbers from before and after.
Yeah, so I mean, the season before this happened, which was last year, obviously, his first 53 games, or he had 11. He had a 304, 376, 605, and 880 OPS slash. Obviously, good numbers. 11 home runs. After the collision in May with Tatis, he has 46 games, 172 average, 271, 225, and a 496 OPS.
The slugging being at 225 is crazy. It's lower than his OPS.
There you go. I mean, it's lower than his on base.
That's awful.
Yeah.
That's what I meant, his on base, not OPS. Sorry.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, of course. That's absolutely crazy, man. I mean, and you don't want to... You got to just believe that that's what happened. Anthony Rizzo's never played ball like that.
There's got to be some kind of lingering injury. But, this is the thing about the Yankees. Why don't their training staff... why don't they pick up on these things?
Yeah, you'd think somebody would.
Somebody figure it out.
When that video got reposted on Twitter of the actual collision from May, and man, dude, it did not look good.
Well, his head bent back, neck completely backwards.
I mean, you could see that shit moving.
It jammed his whole neck back.
Yeah, really not good. So, yeah, but the Yankees, they lose Germán and they lose Rizzo for the foreseeable future. Germán for the rest of the season. That's going to hurt when they're only 2.5 games back. And again, like we said, if you had made trades for depth, maybe this wouldn't be as big of a deal.
Yeah, I mean, You know what I could see them doing with the Mets recently releasing Luke Voit and Rizzo being banged up? Maybe they go back and reunite there.
That is definitely a smart move.
Keep with the theme. I mean, the guy,
he was super hot in AAA.
He had the most home runs in the major leagues in the shortened season.
Yeah.
What do you have, 20 in like 60 games? I mean, he was really good for them. So I could see it.
If I was them, I would do that as well, or I would at least consider it. Definitely
a cheap option just to fill in.
Yeah, as close as can be to getting in that wild card.
Like Bill just said, sticking in the AL East. The Orioles, though, the opposite end of the stick, they stay hot. They win 3 of 4 against divisional rival Toronto on the road, and are now headed home for 3 against the Mets with a 2-game lead in the AL East.
Yeah, the Mets are a good team to play right now, as we just saw. They got swept by Kansas City, so the O's they head over home. They're gonna get a decent.
Flaherty was great for them yesterday.
Yeah, that's another one. His debut, he was phenomenal.
The 3 games, I mean, they got Peterson versus Kramer.
That keeps the O's in first, and you got to think if they took 2 out of 3 from the Phillies or swept them, man, we'd be talking about them going on a crazy run right now. After what they did to the Rays last week and what they did to Toronto now.
I was about to say, what I find interesting is how good they've been playing against their division. I mean, they're 8-2 against Toronto this year.
Yeah, they just took 3 out of 4 from the Rays, right? Was it 2 out of 3?
I think it was 2 out of... I mean, they won the series regardless. Yeah. If you win series against your division...
I believe it was 3 out of 4 from the Rays, then they lost 2 out of 3 from the Phillies, then they took 3 out of 4 from Toronto.
Yeah. Like I said, they're now 8-2 against Toronto with 3 games left.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I mean, the Orioles this year, Toronto's a weird club this year where they're good in terms of the league as a whole, but when they play the East, or at least the top of the East, the Rays and the Orioles just look better than them right now. That's just kind of how it is. The O's, again, like, the reason we say that why are they 8-2 against Toronto this year, it's probably the back end of that bullpen. Because if you get a game there, it just shortens it. They can shorten a game to 7 innings.
The last 2 innings are basically nails every single
Sometimes 6, yeah, because it's not like they have no other arms in the pen. They do.
I mean, you'll expect guys to stutter and mess up and give up a couple runs here and there. They're human. They're not going to be perfect every night. But those 2 guys in the back of the Orioles pen are about as locked down as you can ask.
Now, Toronto's got Romano when he returns from injury and Hicks. So they'll be trying to replicate kind of the same thing to a lesser extent, I would say.
Very true. Every AL East team is still currently within 3 games of a playoff spot.
Absolutely insane. They're definitely the best division in baseball.
I mean, as of last night, to update that stat, I think they're all within 2.5.
Yeah, no debate, best division in baseball. That's crazy.
I mean, who do you think makes it out of those 5 teams, and where do you see them finishing?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite parts about the new schedule, is you can tell, because these teams don't play each other quite as often, you can tell that they are better than the rest of the league. Yeah. They're still all hanging around the playoffs, even though their other division mates are as well, which would have been mathematically impossible in the past. So which AL East team has the best chance to make the playoffs?
Well, first I want to know, which teams do you think make it out of the 5?
Okay, so
the AL East?
I definitely think the Orioles and the Rays are a lock. I don't think either of those teams fall out. I'd be very surprised if they do.
Yeah, being 25 games above 500.
Honestly, I mean, it might sound like the easy pick, but I'm just taking Toronto. I probably, maybe Toronto doesn't even get in. Maybe it's just those 2. Where they are right now.
I mean, Toronto's in. They're the 3rd wild card right now.
Yeah, they're currently in. They're 2 game. Probably Toronto nabs that last spot, I would say.
Because Houston's in there, and you think Texas is going to be in there.
Toronto's straight up. I just think they're a better team than Boston, and I think they're a better team than the Yankees, and I know they're a better team than Seattle and the Angels. So
I got a bit of a bold pick. I think the Blue Jays are going to fall out, and I think the Red Sox sneak in.
This Red Sox team's, though?
I think they can do it.
Yeah, I mean,
get hot at the end of the season.
You definitely could. I was going to say I think the Yankees have a better chance of making it than the Red Sox.
That's why it's so interesting.
Yeah.
Everyone can still make it.
I think you could see a lot of these teams make it. If I had to predict, though, I'm going with kind of how it sits right now, except you might be seeing Texas in that wild card spot instead of Houston.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I'm going to say I think Boston takes it from Toronto. I mean, Toronto's banged up. You know, I don't know. I got a good feeling about Boston.
And as a fan, I hope it's the Angels that get that last spot. But
Well, as a fan, yeah, I wouldn't mind it being the Angels, but I for some reason, because of how long they struggled, I love seeing when the Mariners are in the playoffs. Last year was a breath of fresh air.
we just need Ohtani and Trout in the playoffs before it's all over.
100%. Well, like I said, they need Trout to come back quick.
Yeah, what series they got coming up on the weekends, all these teams?
So, like I just touched on, the Orioles are going to be going home for 3 against the Mets. The Orioles are 6-4 in their last 10, sitting in first place by 2 games. The team behind them, Tampa Bay, will be traveling to Detroit for 3. They are 5-5 in their last 10.
Yeah, both of those are pretty easy.
They've got a 5.5 game lead in the wild card, so they're sitting pretty as well.
Right.
Toronto, after just losing 3 of 4 to said Baltimore squad, they're going to Boston now
This
to play.
is the series you're scoping out
This
right now.
this could be the biggest series of the weekend.
Definitely. For these
potentially.
2 teams, it's the biggest season or the series of the season.
Yeah, I mean,
to step up.
what are they? They're separated by 2 games. They're going to play 3 games in Boston, the 2 of them. Toronto being 5-5 in their last 10, sitting as the wild card 3, and Boston going 6-4 in their last 10, sitting 2 games behind those Blue Jays. And to round out the AL East, like we said before in the Astros topic, the Yankees are hosting them for 4 right now. They won the first one, the Yankees, so that's good. They're 5-5 in their last 10, and they sit just 2.5 out of the wild card now.
Right. Yeah. So yeah. I mean, I'll have definitely a keen eye on that Toronto and Boston series, like you said. 5-5 in the last 10 for Toronto and 6-4 in the last 10 for Boston. Not a lot of separation there.
No,
So
no one's really pulled away.
This is the time for that separation. This series right here.
Somebody's got to get hot.
Predictions on that series?
What is it, a 3 or 4 game? I think it's a 3 game.
You said it was a 3.
It is a 3 game, so I think I'm going to give Boston 2 out of 3 just based on them being home.
Did Gosman just go?
Yeah,
or
he
is-
just went yesterday. He just pitched yesterday.
That's Toronto 2 out of 3.
You taking Toronto 2 out of 3?
2 out of 3.
I'm taking Boston 2 out of 3. I think that is going to be a huge series, and I think it could change the way. I mean, if Boston sweeps, they're in the wild card, and Toronto's behind them now.
Yeah, I'll be watching that one closely for sure. Moving over to the NL now, what was considered to be a massive series coming into the week, Cubs against Cincinnati. The Cubs finish off and do take 3 out of 4 from Cincinnati, like you said. Good prediction.
I did say that was going to happen.
That first game goes 6-5 to Cincinnati. They kind of scrape it out. Then we get a 20-9 blowout by the Cubs. Another 16-6 blowout by the
Oof.
Cubs. And a 5-3 scraper by the Cubs. It's just a good baseball game.
36 runs in 2 days.
Yeah, 36 runs in 2 days is
not what you want to see as a Reds pitcher.
which is tough because they should have been making moves for it. But whatever, that the Cubs are 2.5 games out of first now, behind the Brewers obviously, and 2 games back of the wild card. Cincinnati's a half game back of those Brewers and a half game up on Miami for that last wild card spot right now.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Why did the Reds not do more at the deadline?
That's exactly what I'm saying. I mean, this team with a Giolito, this team with so many of these guys, these relievers.
They got a good farm system, don't they?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They have it. Get a Jordan Hicks. Get someone.
Why didn't they try to make a deal for Verlander?
Yeah, Flaherty.
Flaherty.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that could have been a divisional thing. Like the Cardinals didn't
guess.
want to send him there.
Maybe. Yeah, so you asked the perfect question. Why didn't the Reds do more at the deadline? This is a young team that doesn't compete great against their own division at all.
Yeah, they've been struggling this year against their division. 14-22 versus the Central. -8. It's pretty bad.
You got to go out and make a move if that's where you're at.
Do you have the numbers for what they are specifically against each team?
After last night's loss, they're only 5-4 versus the Cubs, so it's really not awful. They're 4-3 versus the lowly Cardinals, but then you got 2-5 versus the Pittsburgh Pirates, which is just kind of mind-boggling.
Kind of a head scratcher.
And the awful 3-10 versus the Milwaukee Brewers.
That's what's really done it off for them.
Yeah,
they're still a half game behind the Brewers, and they've lost 10 of 13.
Think about if they could have split that, man. They'd be sitting pretty right now.
Yeah, and that's it for the year. They have no chances to make it up.
So yeah, no chances on them. They have 4 more games against the Cubs. Yeah, plenty more against the other 2 teams. So
Yeah, they got to win those games
They
against
have
the
to
Pirates.
beat up on the Pirates and the Cards because they only played 7 games against both those teams. They got 6 each, 3-game series coming up.
You got to finish those off strong if you want to make a postseason push.
Why do you think the Reds can't beat the Central on a consistent basis?
I don't. It's their pitching, I think. It's the pitching. It doesn't hold up, and sometimes you just can't outslug your own division. Like, you see each other more than everybody else.
Definitely.
They know the book on you better than anyone else. You're not just going to be able to outslug. I mean, the Cubs, look at that. They tried, even in the 2 games where the Reds score 9 and 6, the Cubs score 20 and 16.
And those games are games that go massively different if they make a trade for one of those starter and reliever pairings that people were. This was the year of the starter and reliever pairing in terms of trades.
I mean, think about it. In that 20-9 game, they just need their pitching to give up 8 runs or less.
Yep.
You're asking for 8 runs or less.
Seriously.
I
And
mean,
it's not like the offense it wasn't there. I mean, 9 in that game and 6 in the next
those
game.
are terrific offensive games.
Yep.
And it
Yeah.
just doesn't matter because they have no pitching.
Very sad to see, yeah.
You know why I think they didn't do more at the trade deadline, though? I think it's because they didn't really expect to be here.
Yeah, they probably didn't have a plan for it.
They're super young, and they didn't really want to trade prospects when they've seen how well the prospects being called up has worked for them this year.
Yeah, the Reds are kind of that small market team that wants to build from within, so
They never spend a whole bunch of money.
it makes sense to a certain extent, yeah.
Ken Griffey Jr. is their 3rd highest paid player this year, and they're almost a playoff team.
I think the reason that they are a playoff team. They
They
currently
are.
have the 3rd wild card.
They're almost winning their division, is
Yeah,
what I meant to say.
absolutely insane. I think the reason they can't beat the Central on a consistent basis is a combination between, like you said, you can't just always outslug everybody. That lack of pitching and also just lack of experience compared to these other teams.
Yep.
The Cubs and the Brewers have rosters that are just they're guys who have been there before, especially the Brewers bullpen and the Brewers starters, like we've said. And I think it's going to be too much for them.
I think that those are the 2 main reasons why. Experience and just pitching overall just is not good for the Reds. Who's your favorite in the NL Central right now? I think we all know who mine is.
Yeah, I said it on Wednesday, and I'll say it again. I'm gonna stick with the Brewers here.
Respect.
I like the Brewers' young lineup. They got young bats. They're speedy. They have a former MVP in Yelich right in the middle there. A great back end of the bullpen. Veteran starters like Corbin Burns and Brandon Woodruff. So I
Freddie
mean,
Peralta been shoving recently.
100%. So I mean, even those 3. Now you're just looking for a 4th for the postseason. And you could find it there. I think that's the best team to make a run, both towards the playoffs and in the playoffs from the Central.
I respect it for sure, but I'm sticking with my Cubbies.
Got to.
They're going to make the run. The team, like you were just saying, has the experience. They got vets. I mean, why not? Why not them?
The thing is, I like them over the Reds now. I see them taking that wild card spot, and I don't think we're going to be seeing the Reds play in postseason ball this year.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like it's a little bit too early for Cincinnati. They're ahead of schedule, which you absolutely love to see, but
It didn't have to be too early. But
No.
they didn't make the move, so
they decided that it was too early and they didn't want to draw any lines just yet and keep themselves open. I mean, who knows what happens in the offseason and next season?
Yeah, they're going to try to make a run with their own young guys here and going forward, so that's it. They need the pitching to come back and be healthy. Maybe that'll help them out to make a run here.
I'm definitely interested to see how the Reds' pitching develops as the seasons go.
We'll keep an eye on the Central.
How about the Philadelphia Phillies keeping the strong play going, taking 3 of 4 from the Miami Marlins? Their only loss comes in a 9-8 defeat on Wednesday in 12 innings.
Yeah, pretty insane.
They score 2. It goes 2-2 in the 10th, so they evened it out. 1-1 in the 11th, and then the Marlins walked it off in the bottom of the 12th, unfortunately.
Philly leaves that ghost runner out there, which, that'll happen.
You can't afford to do it anymore.
Yeah, I like the rule still. I love the rule, man.
Fully come around to the
forbid.
extra innings.
Imagine this inning was this game was 17 innings. They're calling guys up from AAA to fill in the spots.
I'm not trying to see an 18-inning baseball game unless it's in the playoffs.
And the playoffs 18-inning games are phenomenal.
Of course,
they have allocated off days and stuff for
and
that.
also, if every pitch matters way more in
Most
the playoffs.
definitely, yeah, we agree on that.
In the final game
Thursday.
Thursday, Michael Lorenzen, newly acquired Philadelphia Philly, 2023 All-Star for the Tigers, let's not forget. Shout out Michael
He's had
Lorenzen.
good stuff lately.
He goes 8 innings, allowing 2 runs, 6 hits, 1 walk, 5 Ks. He's got a 3.5 ERA, 3.48 to be exact.
Dude, I like Lorenzen.
I think he's a gem. He really is.
And I actually really commend the way... I mean, he was a little bit too hard on himself when he got called to the All-Star game. He was saying he didn't deserve it. He was embarrassed.
I mean, he was in the 4s.
You're good, though.
But he was in the 4s.
I know he's good, and I hope he knows... I mean, of course he knows he's good. He's in the MLB.
He's gone down from like a 4.4 when he said that to down to like a 3.4.
Well, there you go. Maybe it was motivation. There you go. He's pitching like an all-star now, at least a Detroit all-star.
It's rare. He didn't have a first half where he felt he was an all-star. Got the all-star nod anyway because every team has to have a representative. And now he's pitching like an all-star.
Good for him. I want to see that, yeah. After that series and Philly takes 3 out of 4, this is pretty huge. After 3 out of 4, Philly is 59-50.
Only setting a game and a half up on Miami after that.
Miami's 58-52, so the series is absolutely huge. We talked about Lorenzen. Let's talk about Miami's new acquisitions. The first game on Wednesday where they make their debut, Josh Bell goes 4 for 5, hits a tank in his first game in the Miami uniform.
Wow.
2 RBI there. Jake Berger goes 2 for 4, doesn't get anything in, but that's a productive day, of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the second game, the 2 new players combined for 0 for 7 with 1 walk. I mean, it's going to happen in baseball.
It'll happen.
I think both of those guys will be fine in Miami like they've been fine all year, and honestly, throughout their careers. Berger's having a career year, obviously.
Yeah, I mean,
so we're talking about their deadlines. Do you think either team's deadline pushed them over the top? Who and why?
I think these two teams had arguably... I mean, the Padres are up there, but, these teams had some of the best in the National League for the deadlines. Yeah. And a lot of them were just under-the-radar moves, like you said, Josh Bell. That was, very late in the day on the deadline day.
Oh, very late.
They just snuck it in their final hour, and, he goes 4 for 5 with a homer.
Berger gets traded for one minor league pitcher, Jake Eater, a little Jake for Jake trade. And then he's going to be better for them.
To answer your question, I think Philly's making it.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of those spots are theirs. I think them going to the World Series last year, it's got to give them an advantage over the Marlins, who they don't make the playoffs ever.
Yeah. Philly's a team. They're a team and a roster that just kind of find a way to win, and I think they're going to keep doing that this year. So I definitely like them more, and I do like their. I don't know if I like their deadline more, but I overall like their roster more. I think it was already better before the deadline, and I think they added and helped it out.
I think the Fish had a better deadline, but I think the Phillies have a better roster, and the additions they added to their already better roster is going to help elevate them further.
Essentially, Miami had a better deadline overall, but not enough to be a better team than Philadelphia overall.
Because, again, just like the Reds, nobody really thought the Miami Marlins were going to be 58-52 and a half game out of the wild card sitting on August 4th.
Yeah. So, I see Philadelphia making it there and Miami battling it out, maybe taking that last spot from Cincinnati. We'll end the NL East saga here by we have to do this. We have to give the flowers to the Braves. I mean, we don't talk about them enough on here, just particularly because when this show started, they were so far ahead and just so clearly the best team in the National League.
Yeah, there's just not really much to talk about when they have a 7-game lead over second place in the National League. Here's what I'll say about the Braves.
Philly's been hot in their 11.5 games.
Here's what I'll give everybody about the Braves. They're the best team in baseball. Mm-hmm. It's not a surprise. They're probably going to go deep in the playoffs again. I mean, and I got some news for everybody. They ain't going anywhere.
Nope.
Their core is locked up together for at least 5 years.
We'll be seeing it until 2028.
It's the way that team is built. Everybody should model their franchise after them and Houston. Houston, and the Dodgers. Those are the 3 teams everybody should copy.
Yeah, the East is theirs. I mean, it's theirs this year. Nobody's taking it. It's theirs next year until somebody tries to.
I always say that. The division is the division champs to lose until somebody takes it.
I mean, Atlanta has been running this for so long now, and they are just such a phenomenal team top to bottom.
I mean, last year was incredible. Mm-hmm. The Mets win 101, the Braves win 101, but they sweep them in theirs, so they're tied, and they win the tiebreaker, and it's just... The Braves just always seem to do what they need to do to win.
They're a winning franchise, and they really have been since the 1990s when they made all those World Series. They couldn't finish a lot of them off, but they
you'll take NL pennant. They got 1 in 95.
So they finished one of them off out of all of those.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, you'll take a bunch of NL pennants.
I'll take any NL pennant.
That's what I'm saying.
That's second place, man. Silver medal's better than no medal.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Braves. This is their division. Philadelphia's hot. and I think they stay in the playoffs. I think Miami maybe takes that last spot from Cincinnati.
I don't know if it's because it's tough. I think the Giants are having a hell of a season. We'll touch on them in a bit.
Definitely.
The Phillies, like I said, I think they're going to make it, so we're down to one spot. I think it's going to be either the Cubs or the Brewers, whoever doesn't win the Central that takes that last spot.
I think it's going to be Miami, the Cubs, or San Diego.
San Diego has a nasty roster.
They really could make a run. They're only 4 games out right now, so yeah, we'll keep an eye on that as it goes forward. San Francisco, let's go over to the West. They got some dogs over there. San Francisco takes 2 out of 3 from Arizona. You know, those two teams are so close. San Francisco in the wild card and Arizona right out of it right now. San Francisco's 2.5 games back of the Dodgers, 2.5 games up on the first wild card spot, so they're like firmly in there as long as they keep consistent.
I did not know the Giants were 12 games above 500, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned on Wednesday episode, it wasn't a first. You said it was their first time over 10 games, and they keep going.
They're 7-10 in the last 10, and they're 7-3 in the last 10. Excuse me, now they're plus 2.5.
Yeah, so Arizona 6.5 games back of the Dodgers now, which is sad. Just like a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, they were the first place team. A game and a half back of the wild card now. They're not even the second team that they're.
How many are they behind the Dodgers now?
6.5. I just said 6.5. Third place team. Arizona's really skidding. They're 3-7 in their last 10, and like you said, San Francisco's the opposite at 7-3.
That's what we were just saying about the AL East. No one's pulled away. The Diamondbacks are going one way. The Dodgers and Giants are going the other way.
Arizona sneaks the first game of this 4-game set out 4-3 in 11 innings. So it's much like that Miami-Philly series where their only win is an extra inning scraper. Then they lose 4-3 to San Francisco. They lose 4-2, and they lose 1-0. So all of these games are 1 or 2 run games.
Very close. Very
low scoring, very close in score in general. I mean, this was an absolute battle of a series, and Arizona gets another disappointing conclusion to it.
We were just talking about how they couldn't even take 2 or 3 from the Cardinals.
Lost 2 or 3 from the Cardinals.
Yeah, now what do you expect? You're facing a team that's hot right now, to say the least. I mean, the Giants aren't out of the division either.
I mean, no, absolutely
2.5.
Yeah. What do you think about San Francisco? Are they just the better team out of them and the Snakes?
Yes, I think they are.
That roster.
It just comes down to the roster.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's also kind of an experience thing. It'll come down to that a lot in baseball when you're making deep runs.
Yeah, you got to remember, guys, like Corbin Carroll is in his first year still.
Right.
Like, he's going to be really good.
Yeah,
come
he's
year
a stud,
4 or 5.
Mm-hmm.
You got to give him a little bit of time in the show before we can determine.
Yeah, I think San Francisco is the better team, and this series kind of proves it because better teams find the way to win, and the only way that they lost was in the 11th inning. So the last thing we kind of want to touch on is, like you said, you felt decent about San Francisco's chances in the West at the Dodgers title.
Yeah. I mean, they play them 4 more times? Yeah, they got a big series in LA to finish off September. Oh wait, no, there's 2 series left. They play 4 in LA from the September 21st to the 24th, and then they play a 3-game against San Diego, and then they go back to playing the Dodgers again. So for 3. So they play the Dodgers 7 times in the last week and a half of the season.
That is massive, actually. I didn't even realize that. That's really crazy schedule.
I mean, if they stay close, those Giants-Dodgers games, you know how they get when there's nothing on the line.
Yeah, everybody be safe if you're attending those
division
games.
on the line, those
Seriously.
people are going to be going at each other.
Rowdy. They will be the hottest games in baseball, obviously. I mean, those are going to feel like playoffs. That's actually going to feel like a 7-game playoff series.
With San Diego mixed in between.
100%. That's going to be insane.
Luckily, the biggest games potentially are in San Francisco because all the bad stuff usually happens in LA.
Right, yeah. Yeah, that's true. It is impossible to pick against, I'm not picking against the Dodgers to win that West title. It's like we said. I mean, nobody takes that from them.
Yeah, exactly. It's yours until you lose it.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
So in terms of the Snakes' chances on the West, what do you... I'm out on that.
Dwindling. To say the least.
I'm out on that. They'd have to make a run, and I don't think... Again, they probably should have done more at the deadline as well.
I think the D-backs should try to focus more on the wild card this year. I mean, obviously, they're focused on winning the division. It's only 6.5. It's possible, but you guys got to get your legs going. You got to move.
I would say they had a deadline where they're trying for the wild card, not a deadline where they're trying for the division.
Yeah.
They made the Tommy Pham trades. They didn't make the Jack Flaherty trades.
I do like the Giants a lot. I think that they're up there with the Cubs for me in the NL of a team that I think that if they get in, because you know how the playoffs work, man. You get in as a wild card, you can go all the way.
Yeah, and they're a team playing like this after having such a sloppy offseason. We know they were in on Correa. That didn't work out. They were also in on Arson Judge. So that was
Classic Arson Judge.
Yeah.
Actually, they signed Arson Judge.
They did sign Arson Judge, yeah, but it got
But Aaron decided not to go
got
there.
reversed real quick. Yeah,
Classic
thank you,
John Heyman. Awesome. Great
No,
work.
yeah, but so a very sloppy offseason for them, and they still 2.5 games out from the Dodgers and playing very good baseball.
Yeah, the only thing that really is kind of scary is that they're 4 back in the loss column. But it's not insurmountable.
No,
especially with those games against each other.
I think the Dodgers cap it off. I think that roster is just like way too talented, and then I actually think San Francisco is going to hold pat on that top wild card spot.
I agree with you on the location.
Specifically the spot.
I agree with you fully on the location of both of those.
Yeah, I don't think any other team. I know Philly's good and stuff. I don't think they're taking the number 1 spot from San Francisco the way they're playing this year.
The final thing that I'll say is from a fan standpoint, I want those games to matter.
Oh yeah. The way it is right now.
Just keep it within 3.
We kind of don't really have too much time for it not to, unless this team
That's
starts
true.
to skid.
Yeah, there's only like a month and a half.
Yeah, if you guys, this is like 3/4 of the year through. I mean,
keep it within 3-4 of each other, and those games are going to be a bloodbath.
Definitely, yeah, we need to see that. Thank you everybody for listening wherever you did. This was episode 6 of the 9 Frames podcast on Friday, August 4th, 2023. You can find us on Spotify at 9 Frames. YouTube will be on there at 9 Frames Podcast. And Twitter, we are at 9 Frames Pod. I have been Bill Whalen.
And I've been Mike Whalen.
And we hope that you firmly enjoy that weekend, folks.
Should be a good one.